This conference will now be recorded.
Well, hello everyone, and great to see a bunch of friends logging in. And Scott, you're there?
I'm here.
Okay, good. You guys can probably see us. I can only see my full screen. So we'll get going. And I'm Jay Berkowitz, and I'm with my friend and client and attorney Scott Silver. And we did this presentation live for the Interactive Marketing Association, I guess about 2 months ago now. Right, Scott?
Yep. Gave the
And
live show.
So thanks for doing it again so we could share it with the webinars, and we're doing these webinars every month. So I thought it'd be fantastic if we did, a real authentic attorney webinar. So without further ado, we're going to share with you the hockey stick case study. And as a Canadian and a Winnipeg Jets fan, I just like to get that logo in there. And I love to show hockey sticks because a hockey stick is a business term that means that you started out and you're moving along like the blade of the hockey stick, and then you ramp up like the shaft of the hockey stick. So this is data from Scott's Google Analytics, and the red line is site visitors. And we started out, we were in the 1,900, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, and now Scott's regularly getting 8,000, 9,000 people to his website. And more importantly, traffic is good, but with it is coming leads. What Google Analytics calls goals are either calls, so we have call tracking in place. So when someone calls, we know they called, and it can be hopefully converted if it's a good prospect by Scott and Scott's team. And form fills is when someone fills out a contact us form on the website. And we also have the little chat box that pops up when people come to the website. So by introducing all those vehicles and making it easy for people to identify themselves as prospects, we've been able to improve the number of leads or goals over 400% from 20 and 30 when we first started all the tracking up to like 200, 246. So it's a really great success story. So we're going to share with you some of the strategies we use to achieve that. And one of them we call the 7-alarm fire drill that Scott kind of conceived with us, and we've really made an art form of it. We'll talk about how effective it is for generating prospective clients for the law firm. We're going to cover the ABCs of SEO, or the basics of search engine optimization. And I'm going to share with you what I believe is the next breakout social media. And whenever I say that, people say, well, it's TikTok. But TikTok is definitely a breakout social media if you're 14 years old. But if you're a business, there's a new social media opportunity that we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about how we track performance measurement. It's so important that the law firm has the ability to feed back to us when we get a good case. And we can tell the PPC managers and the SEO team, here's a really good phrase, or here's something that worked really well that converted, and then we can feed that back to the team and they can do more of what's working. Scott does a great job with video marketing, and video is so important. We'll talk about that. And finally, Scott will share what he looks for, this client looks for, in an agency. So I just wanted to introduce Scott, and he's the managing partner of Silver Law, and he's a AV-rated Martindale-Hubbell, and his focus is securities and financial law. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but essentially he sues bad stockbrokers who are cheating or taking advantage of their customers. And he's also active in a group called EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. And Scott, what's the role with the association?
Currently, I'm Strategic Alliance Partners board member, which essentially is bringing in sponsors and others in the community to work with entrepreneurs and business owners in South Florida.
And also the Legal Association?
Two that I'm very active in is PIABA, and the second is I am currently the chairman of the Securities and Financial Fraud Group of the American Association of Justice, which used to be known as the American Trial Lawyers Association.
Awesome. And so Scott plays a role in a volunteer capacity and helps run their events and conferences. And Scott, you were going to say a few nice words about me. You promised.
Yeah, no, Jay, I appreciate you inviting me to participate in today's webinar. You and your team have been my gurus when it comes to my online marketing presence. I first met Jay when he was a speaker at another event, and I've since had the opportunity to see you speak and bring your thoughts on a lot of marketing topics over the years. By way of background, Jay had been with a larger agency working with some of the biggest companies in America: Coca-Cola, Sprint, McDonald's. And since that time, launched his own agency in South Florida, and is the author of several books and others, including the 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing, 10 Free Digital Marketing Strategies that went to #1 on Amazon. And he has been profiled in the Wall Street Journal, other papers, and interviewed by Fox Business TV, and now a little bit by me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So without further ado, I know we've promised you that we're going to share the case study for these incredible increases. So let's get to it. And the first thing is the 7-alarm fire drill. And Scott, you sort of conceived this. Why don't you explain what it means?
Sure. So, as Jay said, my practice primarily is representing investors in claims against stockbrokers, representing victims of Ponzi schemes and others. So, one of the things that's become important to my practice is that many people have no idea of who I am or what I do until they need me. And so, one of the best examples that are out there, obviously, is Bernie Madoff, who ran one of the largest Ponzi schemes in history. People woke up one day, pulled up in the newspaper, and was like, holy shoot, I've lost my life savings. What am I supposed to do? I need a lawyer. And, they start going on the internet and Googling and looking for information on lawyers who specialize in this area. We've since then developed what we call the 7-alarm fire drill, so that when these times occur, because unfortunately Ponzi schemes and investment frauds continue to proliferate, that when we identify a person, a product, a scheme that's going on in the community, we call it the 7-alarm fire drill, how we go about letting the public know that we are available to assist them in helping to recover their investment losses.
So you start your morning, you get these bulletins, right?
So, yes. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I'm a big reader. I read a lot of things. And the way I start my day is that the Securities and Exchange Commission, who regulates Wall Street and the stock market, every morning comes out with a bulletin of who's been charged that day with securities and investment fraud. So we begin by looking at these reports to see what's being reported, and is usually our first line of information about what's going on in the investment community.
Okay, great. So, sorry, I'm just switching here. And then FINRA is the organization that is looking out for these bad guys, right? And when you see one of these, it's like a 7-alarm fire drill, right?
Correct. So what we're looking at here is what's called a CRD report, and it's basically a report card of every financial advisor or stockbroker in the country. From a non-market perspective, this is probably the best takeaway that people could take on listening in on this call. If everybody should really know how to go check out their financial advisor and see if they have a history of customer complaints. Here is an example of one where we do represent several customers or former customers of James Flynn. He was a financial advisor at Voya Financial Advisors. Voya is the company you always see on TV with their advertised version of the little orange piece of paper talking about how to save for your retirement. Unfortunately, we believe in this situation, one of their financial advisors was recommending a series of high-risk, high-commission products to many of his customers. without disclosing all the material risks. Ultimately, as over 36 customers have filed arbitration claims. When you have a dispute with your financial advisor, those disputes get filed with FINRA, which is a quasi-governmental agency overseeing Wall Street. This is where my law firm specializes, is representing investors in these types of claims. And so we're constantly pulling these kinds of reports. When we get a call from a potential customer, from a potential client about an advisor, we want to see have other customers file complaints, what's their background. This report shows whether or not they've been terminated, whether or not FINRA or the SEC has brought charges against them, and a wealth of other information.
So Scott, when you see one of these and it sets off the 7-alarm fire drill, and I think Maxwell's on the call as well, one of the first things you guys do is you get a blog post up and you do some research, and we basically, that as Scott's agency, we need some content because they're the content experts. And Scott and Maxwell immediately get a blog post up like this, and then they give us the 7-alarm email or text like, hey guys, we're in play. And there's only a couple really big 7-alarm fire drills every year, but we get some medium level ones, like we got one the other day. So the first thing Scott does is they get a blog post like this up so that we have some background information, right?
Yes. So we're constantly writing up content for the website, talking about different products or financial advisors who are the subject of multiple customer complaints and other information. What we're looking at here, it's the same financial advisor that we were just looking at, but a great exemplar of the types of content we're doing for our blog.
Okay, great. So then the next step is we immediately get a pay per click, paid advertising campaign up. So we'll either go directly to that page, to that blog page, or we'll link to a specific landing page we'll create all about James Flynn in this instance. And so the next thing that's most important is capturing as much real estate on a Google search. In this case, for James Flynn Voya Financial, we've got a paid ad and we've got an SEO and natural. This is the actual blog post is listing number 1. So this position 1, 2 are paid ads, and then this is the first organic listing for that result. So in an ideal scenario, we want to take up as much real estate as possible and give Scott the opportunity to get as many of the clicks when someone's been burned by one of these bad actors, so to speak. Now, this one was a little bit tricky because if we just put in the words James Flynn, he happens, there's another James Flynn, not the bad stockbroker, who happens to be a relatively prominent academic. And so it's a little tricky because we want to rank for James Flynn, but we don't want to spend a bunch of money on pay-per-click ads all across the country and all around the world. So we've got to be specific. So the previous search was for James Flynn Voya Financial, and we've developed a strategy where within the very targeted geography, something we call stacking the blues, this is a Google setup, and we've got the Google advertising on broad match for James Flynn. So any combination of James Flynn within, whatever this is, like 50 miles of Greenville, where this incident took place, we've got broad match on James Flynn. But then nationally, we have different variations like James Flynn Voya or James Flynn Voya Financial, because we just can't simply get clicks on every occurrence of James Flynn because there happens to be a famous James Flynn. Now, when it's a 7-alarm fire drill, we've got a whole list of about a dozen different tactics that we'll employ. And one of them is getting press coverage. So we'll brainstorm some headlines and some story angles, and we'll approach either local media or national media. And in this one, Scott was able to get a great interview with the Greenville News. You want to talk about this one a little bit, Scott?
So many of our cases are very interesting stories in the community. A lot of reporters reach out to me about cases that we're handling, and to talk about what occurred, how it's impacted people in the community, and in this case, we were fortunate to be quoted by a local reporter who found the story to be very compelling local piece about what was happening with all the customers.
So, at the end of the day, the 7-alarm fire drill is taking advantage of an opportunity that comes up that Scott can identify. And we've done this for clients in all different kinds of categories. One client in Indiana, there was a very unfortunate incident, and a number of people drowned on a lake boating incident. Another client contacted us on Super Bowl morning when there was a train accident, and we were able to get pay-per-click ads up right away. And the very next morning, they got a call from one of the individuals who had back injuries and lost all her luggage on that train accident. So essentially, the 7-alarm fire drill is about identifying breaking opportunities. And unfortunately, in Scott's industry, he gets these FINRA alerts every day or so. And immediately we set up the SEO and the pay-per-click. So we search engine optimized pages on Scott's website by Scott writing the blog posts and additional tactics we can employ from the agency side. We set up the paid Google ads, and we customize different pay-per-click strategies, as we talked about, local versus national. And then when it's a 7-alarm fire drill, we're really going to consider as many additional tactics as we can. We're going to reach out to the media. We're going to do social media. And as I said, we have about a dozen different things on our checklist to take as much advantage of this. And part of the opportunity is, if you can get up really quickly, you can take advantage of the leads, the customers who are first finding out about this for the first 3 to 7 days before other people find out about it and get their act together. So if we move quick and Scott moves quick, we beat the other lawyers to the punch. Any last thoughts on this tactic, Scott?
No, I would add that, I've come to learn over the years, and you've helped me identify, various what I call verticals or silos of writing about, whether it be different products or the themes that we see in the community, and how this content has both short-term and long-lasting impact, both on my SEO and ability to attract clients.
Awesome. Well, next up, I couldn't wait too long to get to this one, because I promised that I would share the next hot social media. And this is a common question that I get at conferences and speaking and through our website, is people want to know what's next, like what's the next Facebook or what's the next LinkedIn. There's a lot of hype about TikTok, but TikTok's really, it's really a social media mostly for young kids. But this one's really significant for business. And on this social media, people can post videos and photos. Not only the owner of the social media site, but also any visitors can post on this social media. There's tons of reviews. You can update the social media with posts, so it works kind of like your website from an SEO perspective with blog posts. And there's tons of Q&A as well. And what we're talking about today is Google Maps, or what Google calls GMB, Google My Business. And a lot of people would say, well, it's not really a social media, but in fact, Google started playing around with a follow button. So you can actually follow companies now on their Google Maps or their GMB. So, well, I'm maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek calling it a social media. Google is, in fact, treating it like a social media, because Google Plus failed and Google doesn't really have a social media. And so what they're doing is they're allowing you to create a whole community around your Maps function. Now, there's really significant opportunity when you can get your Google Maps to rank. And so when I said before it works like SEO, I mean, here's a search for like personal injury attorney near me, and we see the ads at the top. But the first SEO, or free search engine optimization, is in the 3-pack. We call it the 3-pack because typically there's 3 organic results, although Google sometimes sneaks in another paid ad identified by this little green button. So the 10 organic or traditional SEO are down below And so your first opportunity to get that free click is with Google Maps. So here's what the Google Maps looks like and what we call the 3-pack in the industry. Now, over 50% of searches in 2020, Google predicted, are going to be done on mobile now. So when you do a mobile search, like this is if we were to scroll down on the phone, it becomes even more important because people are often looking for that website near them. So how do you get listed in the Google Maps and take advantage of this? The first thing is you got to search your business. Now, Scott's obviously claimed his business, or we've worked with him to claim and optimize his GMV. But if you hadn't claimed your business, you just go in there, you say, I own this business, and then Google's going to send you a little postcard with a code, and you've got to put that code in to claim the business. Now, when you get in there, you can fill in all the sections, and you can select the categories. It's very, very important that you get as many categories as possible. And then the 3 most important things to getting ranked, you need lots and lots of reviews, and we're working with Scott on some programs to get even more reviews. But one of the things that's really valuable is make it really easy for people to do reviews. And we're going to post our review link. So if you guys would be so kind, if you learned anything valuable in this webinar, or even if you just want to be nice, we'll post this in the chat, and then you guys could go and give us a Google review. We'd really appreciate it. But really the lesson here is that make it easy for people to give you reviews. So in the back end of your Google My Business is this little link, and that'll send people right to the review page. Another strategy that the lawyers are having great success with is a sort of a concierge program. And what you want to do is from the first time someone calls, you can identify a concierge type of program where somebody's going to make it really easy for them to get information from the law firm, to update them on their case. And as the case is being settled, and hopefully you're getting them some just rewards or maybe even a check in compensation for their losses, the concierge could ask them for a Google review right before that final meeting where they're getting a check. Another strategy that works really well is to have an incentive. Now, you can never incentivize your customers. You can't give a coupon to your customers, but you could give a $25 or $50 gift certificate to your legal assistant every time they get a 4 or 5-star review. And so that's a really good strategy. Now, the next piece of the puzzle that's important for your Google Maps SEO, like coming up high in those listings, is consistent NAP, which we in the industry call name, address, and phone number. So every time Silver Law Group comes up, we want to make sure that it's consistently listed exactly called Silver Law Group. It's not called Silver Law LLC or Silver Law Lawyers. And then the address is very consistently listed, whether it's MapQuest or lawyer sites and things like that. So you want to make sure that your NAP is consistent so that you're sending a message to Google, which is, Google's an automated robot, essentially. You want to send consistent messaging about exactly where your address is throughout all the different listing sites. And then the last piece of the puzzle is you want to get some local links. So here's a link that Scott was able to get from the New Times, which is a local newspaper. And when it works like a charm. So here's the increase year over year, and Scott's been able to get a 45% increase in what Google calls Google My Business GMV views. The queries are up 22%, and that means 879 people found them on map views, and 53 people took an action. So they either did a website visit, a phone call, or requested directions. And this is really valuable because these are indirect queries. So direct queries is somebody who searched for Scott's name, like Silver Law Group, and indirect queries are someone who searched for like, securities lawyer or securities legal company, sue my stockbroker. So you want to come up for indirect queries because that's free SEO. So this section, all about Google Maps, is about getting lots of reviews, consistent NAP, name, address, phone, local links, and then you can add photos and video and make updates to your Google Maps like you're doing search engine optimization on your website. So adding updates, adding pictures, videos, getting lots of reviews is going to goose your SEO results and give you the kind of traffic that Scott's getting. And Scott, I know you had a couple comments on maps as well.
So, I didn't really fully appreciate how important Google Maps was when we first started with this. Many of my clients come nationally, and so I wasn't really focused on my local address. But then I came to appreciate, first of all, for Google My Business, every time you get a Google review, that's where it's being posted. That's where the public is seeing it. So even a client of mine on the West Coast is still seeing the Google reviews that are popping up on my listing when they go check, because many times the client, if they come indirectly, it's still then going and checking out the law firm and seeing what exists about us out there on the internet. So that's the first tie-in. And then all of these, as we create content, is to keep it cascading. A great photo, a great video, I could use 3, 4, 5 times over at different social media sites. And I've found that to have had great value as well. A good bang for the buck.
Awesome. So next up is what we call sort of the basics of SEO, the ABCs of SEO. And Scott, I know you had a general comment on this one too.
So this is why I ended up needing you. This is why I needed help. I'm starting to turn into a dinosaur. The older I get, the more I want to talk about how great it was when I could take out an advertisement in the newspaper and run the same ad for 6 months. With the internet and Google and SEO, there is so much that I don't know and really have no intention of ever learning, from the architecture, the backbone of the websites, to new trends for the backlinking, for the importance of Google reviews. My strength comes from the last part of the process. I'm good at knowing what I think attracts my clients, what cases I'm looking for, what kind of business is out there. I'm good at sitting down and helping create content that's needed for the site. But my expertise is in my business, not in the marketing and SEO side of the life. And I've come to appreciate marketing and internet marketing are related but not identical.
So what SEO stands for is search engine optimization. And people sometimes confuse it. Like they think all internet marketing is SEO, but specifically what it stands for are those 10 free SEO search engine results at the bottom of a Google search. So when we saw the search before, at the top were the paid ads, then the maps, and then down below is the SEO. So you want to come up as frequently as you can in the free area of searches. And this is representative of the growth. This is an external tool that's telling Scott how many different phrases he comes up for on a Google search. So if you go search Silver Law Group right now, Scott comes up #1 in the world. If you search securities fraud statute of limitations, he's probably going to come up #1 or #2 on the Google search. And so all these different phrases are examples of SEO results that Scott's able to get free traffic to his website because he comes up if somebody searches this in Google. Now, way back in November of 2016, he only had 66 results. And I think when we took over somewhere around 2018, he was probably in the 200 range. And now he's well over 1,000 SEO results with different phrases on the first 2 pages of Google. So this is what we're talking about here is like securities arbitration lawyer. Scott comes up in the maps, and he's also in, this would be a position 3, 1, 2, 3 in the free or organic SEO. So the ABCs are the tools or the tactics that are going to help you rank and get those free results. So first of all, your architecture of your website, how your website is built, and you've got to make it really easy for Google's automated spiders or robots. It's like, it's not a person, right? It's a mathematical or algorithmic program. So the first thing is you got to make it easy for the spider to navigate your website. And one of the simple things, the spider is going to look for your sitemap. And if your sitemap links to all the pages on your website, you make it very, very easy for that spider to find their way around your website. The next thing is the code has to be clean. And this is a technical thing, but essentially it's got to be simple and not convoluted with all different kinds of code and links and videos and swirls and stuff like that. The more complicated you make it for Google to read your website, the harder it is for SEO success. You've probably heard about title tags. And in the old days, the name used to pop up on a website, but now it's hidden in the background. But it's still another opportunity for you to SEO or search engine optimize your website. You can add phrases that you want to be found for on the actual text of the page and on the title of your meta tags in the background where you're telling Google what your page is about. The next thing, it's very, very important that your website is fast. So Google wants to make it friendly. They want a good user experience. And if people click to your website and then they click back to Google right away, Google assumes they didn't have a good experience. So one of the things is your website's got to be fast. And so one of the things we tweaked on Scott's website when we took it over, we made sure that the site loaded really, really quickly and it was easy for people to see the website. We also did the mobile optimization test. And you can just find this on Google. You can do the mobile optimization test. The code to text ratio, you've got to make it easy. Again, you can't have so much code that Google can't read the words. You know, they've got to read the words on the page. It's got to be easy for indexing. So again, another technical thing, but essentially what we do is we feed a sitemap called an XML sitemap to Google to read. So if it doesn't find the manual sitemap, they find the XML sitemap. We fixed a bunch of broken links on the site. So obviously if these links are going to pages and they're not, or they're going to other websites and they're not going to somewhere, and there's a 404 error, you're sending negative messages to Google. So the short version of architecture is you've got to make it fast, simple, and easy for those search engine robots to come and read your website. So the A is architecture, the B is backlinks, other sites linking to your website. So we got featured in an article in the Wall Street Journal, and this is a link talking about that links to 10 golden rules. So we're not talking about links on your website, we're talking about links from other places to your website. This one's awesome. And Scott's got a link from Cornell University Law School linking to his website. Why is that so great? Well, first of all, it's hard to get links from .edus, universities, or .govs. And so Google values those very, very highly. Also, it's fantastic that it's from a law.edu, from a law school website, because it's also relevant. Here's a link from an article that got published and a link from another legal website called Justia, where Scott's presenting at the PIABA conference that he mentioned earlier. And finally, this one is like an SEC whistleblower blog. What a great place to get a link, because that's referring to Scott as an expert in his area of specialty. Now, one other heads up, this one's called Backlink Danger. And one of the things we do, and we did this when we took over for Scott, is in the old days, any link was a good link. But now Google recognizes that, a link from, some, I don't know if this is like an Eastern European site or this, I don't even know what this one is, like some Italian website, and skeevy websites, obviously like casino or porn and things like that. I mean, a link used to be a link, and it used to be a good thing in Google, but now links from irrelevant websites and skeevy websites are bad. So we actually remove them from the website. And so the A is architecture, the B is backlinks, the C is content. And Scott, I know you have some great ideas around content development.
So, as a lot of things that Jay was just discussing falls outside of my expertise. Spiders, backlinks, all these things. That's why I need to rely on other experts to help me with that. But when it comes to talking about securities and investment fraud, I view myself as one of the experts out there, both about talking about the topic generically and also identifying specific types of cases that I'm going to want for me and my law firm in the future. I enjoy writing about the topic, and which is one of the best ways of getting good, creative, original content to your site. in my view, and maybe because it's where I could best add value to my SEO, I see good, fresh content as being the foundation of so much of what we do. We've kept them off camera here, but sitting to my left here is one of my firm's masterminds, Maxwell, who works with me constantly in creating this fresh content. We know this content, if done well, if done right, is going to be valuable to the firm today, next week, and next year. And so we are constantly adding additional fresh content to our site, thinking through both specific topics as well as the types of cases. So we have been growing the practice area. One thing we know for certain that with the growing baby boomer generation in this country, that unfortunately elder fraud is a ongoing and growing problem, which we think is going to be big down the road. And we've been adding additional content and writing on that subject matter almost from a generic standpoint to help educate the public as well as boost our SEO out there.
So Scott and Maxwell do an awesome job writing content. Our SEO team works with them to search engine optimize, as well as we identify keyword phrases that would work really well for Scott. So this is a tool that tells us where Scott's ranking. We looked at it earlier in terms of where he's number 1 and on the top of the page. But in this example, what is securities fraud? He's ranking number 13. So that means it's on the second page of Google. Google shows 10 results on the organic SEO on the first page. So what we recommend to Scott and the team is to write blog posts for these things where he's on the second page, number 13, number 14, securities fraud, class action lawsuit. He's ranking on Google right now, but he's on the second page. So these are great SEO strategies for content. Write blog posts about things that you're not ranking as high as you want to. It's very easy to move that up. We also look at competitors. So this is a competitor, and we see that they rank number 4 for the phrase securities fraud lawyer. So we gave that to Scott and Maxwell to write some content about. And then this is a competitor, and we're able to see what keywords they're bidding on paid advertising. We can also see their ads and how frequently they change their ads. But in this case, we're looking for phrases that they're bidding on to see if there's something we missed and something we want to optimize on the SEO. And then we take all those phrases and we provide them to Scott and the team, and they're able to create blog posts that we want to optimize different keyword phrases. So summing up the ABCs of SEO, how do you get listed on the free Google? First of all, your architecture. Your site's got to be clean and easy for Google to read. It's got to be fast. You want to go to Google and just search for the mobile test and run your website through the mobile test. B is backlinks, getting other sites to link to your website. You want high quality sites and relevant sites. Like that link from the law school couldn't have been any better for Scott, because it's hard to get .edus. It's a highly ranked website by Google, and it's a lawschool.edu. So it's a very important link that raises the importance of the site in the eyes of Google, and it means all the content can then rank higher on the SEO searches. And the final thing is we identify phrases that we want to target. Scott identifies content that he wants to target, and we add that to the website. The next section is about performance analytics. And it's very, very important that we understand what's working, what's driving traffic, etc. So Google has a new tool called Google Data Studio, and it's really awesome because you can get up to the second information. You can chart it. It's beautiful graphics and whatnot. We also look at some of the core numbers for Scott, how many users came to the website in a given month, how many leads he got in that month, how many conversions through pay-per-click, and here's that traffic from GMB, the Google Maps. So it's very, very important to look at the data, and we do that on a monthly basis. As well, we've created a lead tracking sheet. So this is where we take the leads on a weekly basis, and we update this information, and then Maxwell and the rest of the team update, yes, these clients signed a retainer, these ones we're working on, and these ones we rejected, either it didn't work for them or it didn't work for us. So it's very, very important, as I mentioned earlier, that we get this data, we feed this back to the SEO teams so that they can improve and tweak what's working. And not only do we know what leads got a conversion or got a lead, which ones actually became clients. Scott or Maxwell, you guys want to comment on this?
Well, ultimately, this is the tell-all, right? How much of all of these different efforts ultimately lead to a conversion into a client, and sometimes what has generated some buzz and attention, which was outside of the scope of what we were looking for. We tend to get a lot of phone calls for people looking for lawyers who specialize in Social Security issues or security, involving violent situations. Not what we do, not what we're looking for. And we go back to look to see what generated that kind of traffic so that we could change the situation. But ultimately, what's important to me and to the firm is tracking all of our efforts to see what ultimately converts into good cases, good clients. I mean, the data at the end of the day is what tells us everything we want and need to know.
Awesome. And next up is video, and Scott's very aggressive in developing video. And I can't tell you how often I hear from attorneys, hey, I watched 7 or 8 of your videos, or they hear this from their clients. I watched 7 or 8 of your videos, and I knew you were the right company for me. So Scott's does a number of different types of videos. He does videos himself, and he also gets videos produced about some of the 7-alarm fire drills. You want to speak to that, Scott?
Sure. So one of the most logical things I heard a few years ago, we were talking about the value of video and the value of YouTube. Somebody simply saying, hey, remember, Google owns YouTube. And, it was easy to appreciate that video was becoming more and more popular. And the cost of production of videos not featuring me have come down dramatically in value. And videos in which I'm doing the talking, the expense has really become nominal. And people do enjoy being able to see. It gives you that personal connection sometimes where that potential client who can't meet with you in person gets to see you at least in action on a video. It helps create a more personal connection. And ultimately, we've seen a great improvement in the SEO side of these videos popping up higher on the search engines.
And the last slide is, before we take some questions, what does a client look for in an agency?
So, and Jay knows this already, I actually went through quite a few agencies before I started working with Jay and his team over there. And we have always had great value working with a agency and a team, one, for their expertise, all the things we talked about that I am not familiar with. But what's worked most importantly with Jay and his team is the ability to be working together for constant phone calls, conversations, fixed monthly meetings to talk about what needs to be accomplished, what needs to be done. Sometimes we all just need a little bit of a nudge to remember what needs to be done, whether it be working with my friends and colleagues to get more Google reviews, to spitball ideas with Jay about what marketing has been working or hasn't been working, how to get more content written for the site. Ultimately, in my view, it's always the most important thing has always been finding the experts and then finding experts that you're comfortable working with, that you're happy working with. Jay and I, just like we're doing this webinar, but he and I meet on these Zoom calls on a constant, regular basis to be talking about what strategies work. And I can shoot an email to many members of the team who I now know on a first name basis, I know who's at the shop is the experts in which different verticals. Get them on the line and get things in motion or action. Sometimes it's very specific things like pay per click, or sometimes it's I'm in conversations with a writer or a reporter, and we're just strategizing, best practices to maximize the opportunities. So when looking for those agencies, those were the things that I was looking for. That was most important to me, and ultimately finding the ones that you're most comfortable with, so that when I'm asking really naive and basic questions about what some of these reports are meeting with, because I'm clueless about the back end of Google, we sometimes could be laughing during our conversations as we educate each other on all the things of maximizing the opportunity. I don't know who gets more excited sometimes when the numbers go up, me or Jay and his team.
Yeah, I mean, as a former hockey player, I love the hockey stick, but it really is a testament to working together. As a matter of fact, we didn't do this in the live presentation, but I just wrote down a couple notes, and maybe it would be valuable for some folks on the call to have my perspective on what makes a great client. And Scott mentioned a couple of the things. Like, one is, this might sound like a subtle thing, but Scott showing up for the meetings helps us move things forward. And what I find a lot of times is in the early parts of our relationship, the clients don't show up as regularly or as enthusiastically. But once we have a little bit of success, they show up. And why is that so important? Well, they need to approve things, because, particularly for a lawyer, we don't put any copy on a website until the law firm signs off on it, because of the bar regulations that vary state by state. Like the bar is the legal entity that I guess keeps Scott licensed and able to practice law. And so, it's very important that not only our partners, our clients, approve things, but enthusiastically give us feedback. And 9 times out of 10, if I'll ask, like, hey, what's working, what kind of cases, and they give us that kind of feedback, then we get ideas where we can get creative and come up with solutions to deliver those types of clients on the internet. The other thing is they have to have an openness to test, and some enthusiasm for that, because so many times when we've what I call cracked the code, a lot of times we do the base, we get the basic things set up, we get the website set up correctly, we get the SEO architecture set up correctly, we get the Google Maps set up correctly. But sometimes it's something a little bit innovative that we do, like a video or a webinar, or something a little bit outside the box, maybe a white paper or a checklist that consumers can download. And so a lot of times, some clients are just reticent to do anything out of the box, but it's really testing that leads to success in online. And then the final thing I'll share is one of our clients who's had tremendous success always asks me this question, and he always says, what else can I do? And I remember he had like 10 videos, and he said, what else can I do? I said, well, let's do 10 more videos. And he said, well, why don't I do 50 videos? So he did 50 videos. Then he did those explainer videos. Then he set up a studio, and now he does 20 or 30 or 40 videos at a setting, and then we search engine optimize those videos. So having that mindset that you can contribute, you can help, you can participate with the agency. I mean, there's a lot we can do, but there's so much more we can do together. So with that being said, I'll just sum up quickly and take some questions. So law firm SEO is so good, you might think it's illegal. We talked about the 7-alarm fire drill. And in Scott's business, Scott identifies the bad brokers and sets up a blog post. And then we very quickly search engine optimize the website for that phrase and that bad broker. We also set up pay-per-click ads. And then we put other things in place like social media and press releases and things like that when it's really a 7-alarm fire drill. The ABCs of SEO are the basic building blocks of free website traffic. A is the architecture of your website, B are backlinks, other sites linking to your site, and C is the content. And the next social media, I would argue, the most important one for business today is Google My Business or Google Maps, because you can add blog posts and videos and images and updates to your Google Maps, it's a fantastic way to boost that first SEO that people see below the paid ads is Google Maps. Performance measurement, not only looking at how many SEO results you have, but as you see with Scott, we're working all the way back to track a signed client. And then we provide that information to our team so they can find more of those great opportunities based on where they came from, what keywords they searched, or which medium they came in from. Scott's doing a great job with video marketing. And finally, he shared what he looks for in an agency, and I shared what I look for in a client. So with that, we'll be happy to take some questions. You guys can just type in to the chat box on the GoToMeeting interface, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Jay, well, we'll wait and see if anybody dials in. And something Maxwell and I have discussed with you, but we always keep debating, is that I used to have more what I called microsites. Back in the day, everybody seemed to be collecting domain names, and I still have, probably, a few hundred domain names that I keep renewing every year, but I'm not sure why. Why don't we talk about the value of why, staying focused content on, my primary site rather than developing out these microsites has the most value?
Well, that's a great question, and I get asked that a lot. And in the old days, it used to be valuable to get multiple domain names. Like, you could get securitiesarbitrationattorney.com and securitiesarbitrationlawyerblog.com. And in the old days, when someone put in the keyword securities arbitration lawyer, the website that had the name securitiesarbitrationlawyer.com came up #1. But over time, consumers got, sort of upset because that website didn't have a lot of information about securities arbitration lawyers. It just happened to have the right domain name. So consumers started clicking off those websites and, essentially sending Google a message. I don't want the website with the right name. I want the website with the right information. So over time, Google started deprioritizing that. Secondarily, we talked about like the ABCs of SEO. You've got to add a ton of content to a website to have success. You've got to get lots and lots of other sites to link to your website. You've got to keep the architecture up to date and fresh and add new types of tools that Google gives you to optimize your website. It's a lot of work just to update, optimize, and build links to one website. Never mind, doing it for multiple websites. So, it's very, very powerful to have one really good website as opposed to splitting your efforts onto multiple different websites.
I thought that was one of the more interesting takeaways I've had over the last, since I started working with you. That at the time when I started, I had a website focused on elder financial fraud, and I was sort of building out 2 mediocre sites. And now, having dropped the elder fraud site and merging all that, now it's a ton of great content all going into one primary site, which allows us to focus our attention there. And I have found it to be a much more productive use of time and energy.
Yeah, I mean, well put. Like, it's hard enough to SEO optimize one website, never mind 10. Next question, Scott, what's the best thing about ranking high for a 7-alarm fire drill?
Most of the clients on the 7-alarm fire drill are, at that time, they've realized very recently that they have a problem, they need counsel, and they are going to look at Google, and they're going to start calling down the list. Who's ranking the highest with what seems like reasonable information? So ranking high, ranking first is incredibly important, just as it's incredibly important that when they call the office, you're going to get somebody here in my office. We are not having a service take name and number and trying to get back to you in 5 or 6 hours, because I personally am a believer there's a good chance that a client is going to move on to the next one on the list until somebody gives her him or her the attention they're looking to hear their story, to see how you could be of assistance. If you're spending the time and energy on a 7-alarm fire drill, they're not calling the lawyer who's on page 3 of Google.
So that's a really good point, talking about intake. And next month, we're actually doing a webinar on intake, because, job number one is to get the leads to the law firm or to the business. And that's our role. And then we're going to have a legal intake expert talking about how to convert those leads into opportunities. Can you give us maybe a quick sentence or two on what's really important for that next step? Once the lead comes from the internet, how do you deal with those folks?
So when you call my office, you're always getting a live person, and you're getting somebody here at the firm. It might not necessarily be me, and we have practices and procedures here in the office to kind of help evaluate cases pretty quickly. If it's a client who is best situated to be talking directly to me, if I am unavailable at that moment, an appointment, a specific date and time is set with the client right there and call. When I say a date, we're offering them a slot in the next 24 hours. Also, to track all of it, whoever in my office, whether it be somebody on the case investigation team or one of the other lawyers at the firm, is doing a full write-up about the facts of the case. Even if it's a case we don't think it's one that we'd want to take, maybe it's one that we think we could help the client with a referral, or even go to help us track, and also information to help us track how did the client find us. Was it organically on the internet? Was it a pay-per-click? Was it another referral from a different lawyer in the community? We do candidly get a lot of referrals. A lot of people know that this is my area of specialty from other communities. But I want to know, how did that client find me, so I know who to thank for making the referral. So we spend a lot of time and energy both tracking how the clients came to us, and also how did we assist that client when they called.
All right, we've got a good question, and it's a bit, I like it when I get stumped, and it's from Kay Ladd, and I'm not sure who that is, but please feel free to email me, and I'll get you a better answer. So the first question is, what if you have 2 locations for GMB, for Google My Business, in two cities? How do you consolidate your GMB reviews from 2 offices in 2 different cities? And we're actually going through that for a client right now, but one of our team members is working on it. So I don't have that answer at the tip of my tongue, and I love it when I get stumped. But I know there's a way to do it. And so if you don't mind emailing me, I'll definitely get you that answer. The next question is, what are our thoughts on organic SEO versus PPC? Scott, you want to take that one first?
Sure. I love organic. Who wants to pay for pay-per-click? Organic is great. It's for life. But pay-per-click is a necessary evil sometimes. I could do a ton of content on, generic search terms. I specialize in Ponzi schemes. I could always write about Ponzi schemes. But the 7-alarm fire drills, when Bernie Madoff happens, I know that's a case that I want to help those investors, and my competitors are all going to be running pay-per-click, and if I want to compete, I need to get in the mix and get in the pay-per-click, because there's just not time even for my organic content to reach the top of the search engines. Now, with that said, I might have the team creating content on Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, so organically I'll be ranking high, hopefully in the near term. And while I like to claim no expertise on pay-per-click and the back end of stuff, candidly have learned a great deal over the years because I got to be looking at it. Ultimately, it is my money, it is my budget, and I have Jay and his team educating me constantly on pay-per-click, but I'm paying for it, and I am looking to see what's working, what's not working, and giving my own thought process, sometimes intelligently, many times not, as to what I want up there on the pay-per-click. But it is what the clients are seeing first and foremost when they do a Google search.
I think part of my answer, and obviously it could be a whole webinar, SEO versus PPC, and maybe I'll put that on the list. But one of the good things about pay-per-click is you can get results fast, and you can measure your results to the penny. So when we get a new client, a lot of times pay-per-click is a good way to get some immediate traction, get some immediate leads. And lawyer leads can be incredibly competitive and incredibly expensive. It might cost anywhere between $50 and $550 per click, just for a click. And especially in competitive categories and competitive areas. And so you can imagine, like, if it averages like $100 a click, it might take 20 clicks to get a client, and that means it costs $2,000 to get a client. And for some lawyers, that's good enough. Like, they can make money off of that. But on the other hand, SEO takes time. So a lot of times we use pay-per-click initially, and then we use it very precisely going forward when we know which keywords are effective. And then SEO typically takes 3, 6, 12 months to start building up, as you saw from Scott's charts. Back in 2018, he only had about 200 keyword phrases. Now he ranks for about 1,000 keyword phrases, and his traffic has increased correspondingly. So the pay-per-click is good out of the gate. The SEO takes time. Scott, one last quick question, and we're just about an hour, so we'll wrap up after this. What's the best experience you've had helping people who've been burned by a bad broker?
One of my favorite questions. If you get to know me, I'm really very passionate about this work. My favorite talk is about how to put my law firm out of business, meaning helping educate investors about best investment practices. There's a lot of high commission, risky investments being pushed by brokers these days that are not suitable for most investors. But one interesting story I have about 2-3 years ago, we represented a woman in Fort Lauderdale. Her first name was literally Flossie, and she was an 80-something-year-old retired Broward school teacher who unfortunately had the onset of Alzheimer's. And she had given a great deal of money to a local financial advisor who worked for a big company, but in his own independent office. And not only did he invest her money in a series of unsuitable investments, but what was incredible is that he had taken her to a local lawyer who rewrote her will, her estate plan, to make his daughter a beneficiary of her estate, carving her own children out of the will. A guardian had been appointed for, I apologize, some back noise. A guardian had been appointed to Flossie to help oversee her affairs and realize what had been done. And we were able to unwind all these transactions. Reported, obviously, the financial advisor to the regulators. He ultimately lost his license and was able to prevent it. It turned out that he was trying to do this with others in the community, it appeared. So we're very proud sometimes when we're able to help investors who really, all they are guilty of is putting their faith and trust in a financial advisor or the professionals around them and get cheated. And unfortunately, we think that's a growing problem in the community. And I'd be proud one day if I could help others to avoid needing my services in the future, because I prevented it before it even happened.
Well, hopefully you guys will never need Scott's services, but if you do, and if you suspect that your broker's been making trades for his benefit, not for yours, Scott's definitely the guy to go to. Scott, thank you so much for your time today and participating. I know we'll hopefully provided a ton of value for everyone, and really thank you for doing this.
All right, Jay, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And thanks everyone for being here. And next month, look forward to you joining to learn all about intake. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.